Well, we've got some cracks to deal with on this loader that we didn't anticipate on doing today. Garrett noticed these cracks here in this tool carrier. I've welded this before. We've cracked it here. We've broke it right here. We split this one time, and then I put this piece of 1-inch cold roll. I wrapped it up over the top of that side. I thought this side was going to do the same thing. But this is the second tool carrier that we've had on this loader. We broke the other one out somewhere in here years ago. And by the looks of it, it's ready for another one. We've got another issue going on with the loader here. We've got a clunking noise in it. And I don't know if we've got something going on with this front differential or if our center pins are wore. We just got done pulling the skid plates off of it, and everything that you see on the floor here is from what was underneath the machine. So kind of disgusting, but it is what it is. So this is Garrett here. He's worked for us for 8 months now.
About that, yeah.
He moves all of our feed. So after I get done feeding with this in the morning, this is his baby the rest of the day. So he takes real good care of it. He's just going around it with a grease gun now. And we're gonna get that welded up and roll them out the door here. And I've got a little bit of work to do on the 7720, but we'll do another walk around here and show you all the crap that we pulled out from underneath this thing here. So it ought to be a little lighter. We probably should have weighed it before we brought it in the shop. You know that? It's probably 1,000 pounds lighter. But it moves a lot of feed in a day's time. All right, we've got the 350 all dialed in here. And I've got this all V'd out really nice. And we're just gonna lay some nice weld in there. I've been in this before. I've welded on it, and I kind of thought last time around it wouldn't have lasted this long. So I probably should order a new one anyway. But this one is a lot stronger than the original one that was on this machine. The original one, this center truss here, only came down to here. It did not go down to the bottom of the bucket. So it had all that twisting on there. And that one really broke. That cracked all in here, and it was just, it wasn't fixable really. And when we bought this one, I think we only had to pay for half of it. I think they warranted the other half, even though it was, you know, past, it was a few years old. They just didn't have it made heavy enough. We better go ahead and get this welded so Garrett can get moving feed here. We'll just lay a bunch of weld in there, and then we'll put a blocker each way to, you know, run a weld each way, and then we'll be able to keep an eye on it to see if the crack moves any farther. But we had a crack all the way around here, and then there was 2 of them on this side. There was one that went kind of on an angle towards this weld, and then one kind of ran alongside the old weld that I had on there. So what they have is a solid rod here that goes all the way across, and then they have this tube here comes over the outside of this solid rod. And then when they made this, they would have had this piece here, they would have had the hole cut in the center to fit around this tube, and then they just welded all the way around it. But the trouble is it must be turning a little bit on this main solid rod that's actually holding the bucket, so it's allowing it to rip and tear a little bit. It probably would have worked out better if they started out with a solid piece of metal, whatever this is, you know, 4-inch or whatever it is, and then machine this down to 3, whatever that diameter of that top link is, and then they wouldn't have cracked it right there. But this does have a lot of torque from the defacer and that rollout bucket, and it's just a lot of side-to-side torque, and got a lot of hours on it. This machine's got 20,000 hours on it, so you're gonna have them problems. Right, Bob?
Oh, yeah, we
yeah,
are.
hammer down. All right, we've got that welded. Yeah, we'll see how she rolls. I'm gonna run out, put the bucket on now, clean up this mess, and then we'll see if we can find where that clunking's coming from on the loader here. So that'll hold a little longer than I thought it would, as far as I shouldn't have to replace it right away, but I'm gonna have to order one. That welded a lot better than I thought it would. So we might as well go ahead and roll her out the door. All right, we have Garrett rolled out the door here. We lost one, but we gained one. Kerr's working on truck 14 now, swapping out a power unit for the hydraulic functions on that tank. We'll visit him in a minute. On this 7200, we're gonna replace this hose. If you recalled back when Sarah was chopping stalks, she blew this hose here on the 7290. And this one is sweating a bit, so we're gonna go ahead and change it, just so that we don't have to deal with a blown hose while we're trying to feed cows. We'll step over here, see how Kerr's making out getting his motor switched over. This has a 12 volt hydraulic power unit on the back, and that's used to lift the boom out of the tank and to swing the boom over to offload into a manure tanker, or if you just end up spreading it out the spread plate, I guess you don't need that power unit. But the motor went, that's the old unit there, and he's swapping the motor itself out, and he has to actually change this tank, because this tank here is a horizontal unit, and he's gonna put a fill hole right here towards the top like that one has, and have this so he can mount it vertically. The other day he had some problems with it, and he thought it was in the hydraulic valve itself. The coils were all corroded on the old one, so we put a new valve bank on there and a new power strip here. All those wires were corroded, and he had to tap on the motor every once in a while to get the motor to work, and it finally took a crap here today. So what do you think, Bub?
Just trying to fix this whole saw bit I just broke.
What do you think of this guy's new shave job here, huh? What do you call that?
I don't know, I guess. I was just trimming my beard up, and I don't know, I kind of went too far with it, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do this.
Alright, so we have our fittings picked out. I'm just going to spray a little lube in this guy here. Push these guys on there. And on there like that. Make sure it stays in the collet. I should spray the collets down too. They haven't had any lube in a while. So, so we've got the 90-degree end crimped on there. Now we just need to put the straight end on. All right, there we go. Alright, we've got this hose mounted on there. It doesn't have as much of a bend as it had before, but this hose here is a little more flexible than what was on there, and it's even put on there the right way. You want to have your markings of the hose out so you can see it, right? Weather head, weather shield. Yeah, so that's going to do it for that one. We need to add a little bit of oil to this. Then we can roll it out the door. So here is the old one here. It's been on there for, I don't know how old this tractor is, 8-9 years old. And yeah, so that should do her. Now we're gonna work on the vac truck. Jason ended up hosing the inside of it out. We've got bearings that we're gonna replace on the end of this auger here. We had worked on this a couple, 2-3 years ago. We've got string and cable wound around it right now, and then there's a bearing on the back side of the auger. We're going to replace that as well. This cable is from the rubber that we have on the floor of the barn. So we've got a long piece that's wound up around the bearing in the rear, and we have cut it off of this front bearing a couple of times, and it's wound up on there again. The other thing that we're doing to this vac truck, we've got to replace the rubber that is on this door here. Jason's getting ready to take that. Should be 1.5 inches, Jay.
Yeah, that's a little smaller.
Well, that one pin is probably wore out. We got to pull the door off, and then this rubber just bolts to the door, and then that seals itself up against the front of the unit to help it create the vacuum. The other thing that we have to replace on it is these end caps here that are on the arms itself. So Jason has got the inside of the tank all hosed out. We've got a fan running up on the manhole entry. We also have to check the balls that are inside the tank. Kind of works like a vacuum cleaner. Once the tank gets full, the balls will go up into the vacuum unit itself to suck out, or to plug off the tank so that you don't have manure going back through the blower.
sucking a little better
Maybe we
anyways.
go in here.
All right, that's gonna take care of the door. Everything fit very nicely on it. And then that has to have the rubber on it so that it seals up the front end of it. And then how this is designed is this door is tapered. So it's got a wedge. It's wider at the top than it is the bottom. So as it gets closed down through that slot, it gets pushed closed tight. And then the door channel has got that slot on there too, so it pushes it right up against the front of the auger housing here. So alright, we are inside the tank here, and we're going to unbolt this bearing plate that's on this end of this auger here. So this here is the old stub shaft that came in the end of the auger. I know it's not that easy to see in here, but we just cut that off. The bearing comes onto that shaft from the back side of the tank. We've got a new stub shaft sitting right here. We'll put that into this auger. Then we can shove everything back through the back of the tank, and we can put the new bearing on once this new stub shaft is in this auger end here. So we're going to go ahead and push that out through the back of the tank here. Hey, are you able to kind of grab this so it doesn't sit too long on hoses? This end is cut off. It's going to be hot. Can you reach in there with welding gloves and grab it? got the new stub shaft in there. Now we're gonna weld them nuts to the bolts so that those don't come out, and then we can put our new bearing on and button the interior job will be done here. So this is the stub shaft that came through the wall of the rear of this vac truck, and then this bearing was gone. We didn't know it at first, but it is gone. This is all that's left to it. So we had some cable get wound around that auger a week or so ago, and we were able to clean it off, and the bearing must have went then. So we're gonna put that new stub shaft on there. Tim's gonna get this stub shaft out. That just goes in the end of the drive line here. And then we're gonna weld the bolts here in a minute that go into the auger itself. So I've got the 350 welder set up. This welder I can I can do stick welding with it as well, and I wanted to use the Stinger lead just so I could get inside the tank. The regular MIG welding gun is not long enough to reach from the floor up over the side of the tank and back down in there. So I've got a 75-foot welding lead that I can weld with a welding rod with. So we're gonna go ahead and jump up inside the tank and weld them nuts to them 5/8 bolts that are in that auger stub shaft. These guys are replacing the feet that go against, not feet, they're side plates. They actually rub up against the curb of the freestall. So both of them are shot, and we're replacing those. We are about wrapped up on the inside here. We've got the auger secured in place, got the new bearing on there. That was a mongrel to put on, but we got it. So there's a couple of drive bolts, two 5/8 bolts actually, that drive the auger from that driven shaft. There's a hydraulic motor that runs that PTO shaft, which we'll show you in a minute how that works. And then all this auger is used for is just get the solid material out of this tank in the event that you have some sand or whatever on the floor of this tank itself. For the most part, it just gravity unloads, and the auger is just in here to help move out the solids. So we're gonna go ahead and get out of the tank here. We're gonna get our hatches closed down. We've got all these guys, they're back from doing what they were doing earlier, and we're gonna run up and clean the heifer down. All right, we've got this all done. Jason and Lukens ended up putting the new ends on here. They put the rubber on the door, and then we ended up replacing the bearings on that auger, and that was a job that hopefully we don't have to do again for quite a while. We've done it, this is the second time we've done it, and right up in here is where the drive line hooks up to the back side of the auger. You can almost see the bearing in there, and then it is driven from a hydraulic pump here. So we had a little bit of a time getting that shaft to go on that bearing up on the back end of that auger. Why don't you open the door and we'll get a look at that bearing on the front side. This bearing here is brand new as well. So this ought to work pretty good now for a little while. end of this one alleyway here, and he's just about loaded. We ended up bedding the stalls with sand today, so you can see a little bit of a buildup on that one side as he's scraping down through. We use sand opposed to sawdust or straw because it's just a better bedding to use, and it doesn't hold the bacteria like straw or sawdust does. So we're getting into the older heifer group here. We came down through the dry cow section, and we came into breeding age heifers, and these heifers here are all bred. He's just going to turn around, then he's going to come back in from the outside, and he's going to suck this manure up coming this way, just so that he doesn't push any manure outside the doorway here. Then once he gets that sucked up, he's going to move over to the other side of the barn and run down through that alleyway. So when you seen cable on the auger earlier, it actually came from the rubber belting that we have on the floor. This is conveyor belting. It's roughly an inch thick, and they use cable to reinforce the belting, and then what they had used this for was for mining, whether it be for coal or gravel or whatever. But it had to be some pretty thick and stout stuff, huh, Ben?
Yes, sir.
You got any TikTok videos you can do? Any jigaboo dances or anything like that?
Not today.
Nothing that comes to mind, huh? So that's where the cable had come from. It must have come from the rubber, and it just peeled out. This is recycled rubber here, so it served its purpose in the mining industry. And then these companies get a hold of it and they sell it to farmers. And what they do is they go through and they groove it so that it's not slippery on the cows as they walk on it. So it's a little quieter in here now. He had to go and unload. He's got this last little bit to suck up on this feed alley section here. And then he'll be back to grab that. He went to dump that off. In this barn here, we've got heifers in the whole thing except this one group here, from the entrance door there down to where this crossover is here. This is dry cows here. These are far off dry cows. And then we're able to bring them over into this barn through this connecting building that's to our left here. And that goes over into barn 8. And we can just run them over into here. So they're a little rambunctious here right now, because we are actually in here about 4 hours later than when we normally come in to clean this, just because we were so long working on that vac truck here. So, well folks, that is gonna do it for today. We got that vac truck done, which that took a lot longer than we thought it would. And Kerr has got this truck 14 done as well, and he has got everything in here sprayed with fluid film. These bus bars get all corroded pretty easy. So that is gonna do it. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you at the next video.